You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast for the final part where we will be talking about Major League Cricket because we forgot it earlier and answering some questions. Happily, Max, we have a question from G to, combine the whole thing into one seamless package. Thoughts on the MLC games? So, Max, Major League Cricket, it's off to a start. What have you made of it?
It's been interesting. I think the big sort of takeaway for me, obviously, is that LA Knight Riders are a total joke, and I find that hilarious, especially after Sunil Narine decided he didn't fancy the round trip of Texas to Birmingham to Texas, and the result was they were bowled out for 50 against Mumbai. So that was funny, and as predicted but unpredicted before the start of the tournament, where we said Seattle Orcas looked like the worst side. They are top with 2 wins from 2. So the prediction orator strikes again. I mean, there's been some big performances. I mean, Corey Anderson was one of those in one of those victories. Obviously, it's been something that's been dominated by the overseas players, but there's been a couple of big performances from some of the local talent, but you do need to put that in inverted commas because one of those was from Cameron Gannon, who's basically just an Aussie who's 2 meters tall, and
That's
used
high.
to play in he used to play in the Big Bash and then got done for chucking, and I don't know, I guess kind of lost it a bit
in America.
and has ended up over here.
It does make sense, doesn't it? Like that's you can pitch in baseball, so
Yeah. I think 24 degrees they measured the elbow flexion at when he got sighted,
isn't it? Like
it's quite a lot more than you're allowed.
Throw.
Yeah. But yeah, he had a day out in one of the games. I think we've seen some funny snippets, haven't we? The run out. Yeah, that was spectacular.
Finn Allen literally didn't run. Is how I would describe that. He knocks it into the leg side and walks a single, and the guy at mid-on walks over to the ball. This all happens at walking pace. Throws it at the stumps, and only then is Finn Allen like, oh shit. Tries to get in, jams his bat into the floor, drops his bat, and is run out by about 3 yards. It also features the umpire Aleem Dar, doesn't it? Who looks very disappointed in what he's seeing.
like a sad dad.
Yeah. So that's that.
It's like he wanted to shout at him and be like, "What are you doing? Hurry up!" I think we're waiting for. Sorry, go on.
I mean, look, it's a franchise league. It's a franchise league. It's what it is. To some extent, they're all the same. It is the same traveling circus. It's in its first iteration, so it's not going to make waves. I don't feel as a like a frontline league. I suppose you maybe describe it as that. Like if it is going to develop into something massive, it won't be this time. We'll be talking about it in 5 years. Not a bad start. And I've heard that it was initially only going to be broadcast on Willow TV in the States, which is the streaming platform for cricket there. But apparently it's been picked up by a couple of cable places. So we'll make it onto regular TV, which I think is part of the strategy. And hopefully it's a breakthrough.
I think there's signs, aren't there? There's positive signs. Like people have gone down. It's been it's been enjoyed by the people that are there. But I mean for an international audience, obviously the timings have been made for the American audience, which is good. I think that's an important thing when you're trying to get cut through. Obviously, that makes it a little tricky here, but.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, one of the games starts at 1:30 a.m. So, Amit Dubey, this is a change of pace. Says, why does Jack feel day by day like the protagonist from Napoleon Dynamite? Who is Napoleon Dynamite? I think. Could have just said, why does he feel like Napoleon Dynamite?
I feel like you're going to have to answer that one. No,
well, I don't know. How am I going to? I can't observe me.
I don't really like Napoleon Dynamite. I find it.
Do you not?
Find it quite an annoying film.
We'll move on from that then.
Maybe that's why you like Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know.
Ben Smith says, will the old man return to his previous glory from the James Anderson end? Also, given the heavy workloads of Stark and Cummins due to the limited overs Oz have had to bowl, do you think both Marsh, and Green would work at the expense of Boland and Hazelwood. So I think we discussed this earlier in part one. We don't think that they'll go for both of them. We think that Hazelwood will play. And I think that more or less settles that. I think Australia will play a conventional team. They're not really wacky guys, the Aussies. They take it pretty seriously. We didn't really say whether we thought Ant would be good, did we? We sort of said it was an okay selection. How many wickets is good? 4 for the match? 5 for the match? 5 for the match, let's say.
5 for the match.
And would that be is he likely to get that?
I reckon he's going to get 5 in an innings.
Oh, well, that would be.
I reckon he's going to have a spell where he's unplayable. I think it's going to be clouds, it's going to be rain, it's going to be there'll be a period where the ball's probably hooping, and I reckon Jimmy could have a moment. But I did also say that I think England will lose, and that's entirely possible because they could easily get bowled out for 100.
Cool. So moving on, Munaf says, can Bairstow open to make room for Folkes if he dropped more catches? If he drops more catches and Crawley does poorly. So I think no on all counts there. I know that I understand the logic, but I don't think England are operating using that as their reference point. I think they're
could
firmly set.
It's an option. It's an option on the list of things that aren't completely insane, but it won't happen.
No, so I don't think so, and I don't think we'll see Folkes in this series.
No,
I think we might see Folkes back for the next Test series in India. Some people are very sort of, England, they've decided it's Bairstow's their man forever. I think actually England have decided Bairstow is their man for the next Test matches. Yeah, for the next 2 matches. Yeah, I think they might reevaluate that depending what happens. So the reality is, Bairstow at number 7 has got 75 runs off 75 balls in his locker. So we don't know if Folkes has got that. And I think that's why they're going with Bairstow. Wiki says, will Wood be able to play the 5th Test if England can win or draw this Test? I think they will definitely play him if the series is live.
He reckons he can.
Yeah, I think they almost definitely will try and play him,
and they'll need him at the Oval if they want to win. They'll need him. He said he would be able to do the last 3 tests. I think, I think so. I hope so.
Next, Alex says, do you think there's been a lack of analysis on the difference in the bowling tactics used by England and Australia? For example, the difference between how England approached Head and how Australia approached Brook, both of whom have struggled against the short ball previously. What's your take on bowling analysis? What's your take on both bowling sides in the both bowling sides tactics in the Ashes so far?
I think England have probably thought more about what their bowlers like doing compared to what the Australian batters are weak against. I think Khawaja and Warner would be like my main sort of evidence for that point. You've got Broad, obviously round the wicket to Warner is a known thing, but Broad likes bowling around the wicket to left-handers, and Broad bowls round the wicket to Khawaja. Anderson prefers bowling over the wicket to left-handers, and he's been bowling over the wicket to both Warner and Khawaja now, and that's despite obviously the well-documented stats that suggest that Khawaja is weaker when the bowler's going over the wicket to him. But England have stuck with what their bowlers are most comfortable doing, which is, I've sort of questioned that when it comes to Khawaja because he just looks so much more comfortable with one way round, and they have after a while sort of mixed it up and tried it. But I think their go-to is we're going with what the bowler's comfortable with, and I think Australia are probably more the other way. I think they're more a kind of we're going to go with what we think the batter likes the least. So. It's been straight to the short ball for Chris Wokes and Moeen Ali when they played. I think Harry Brook, I don't necessarily know if there's that easy places to bowl to Harry Brook. They've got him out with the short ball twice, and on both of those sort of occasions has been him trying to make some room and then whack it down the ground to where there's no fielders and then not getting it right and spooning it up to cover. So maybe that's their weird plan to Harry Brook, but they've employed that a couple of times, with no one straighter than like cover and and mid wicket. So I if there's a difference, I think that's probably where it is. But I think they're pretty good. Generally, when the bowlers are on, anyway. When the bowlers are on, they're quite good at identifying what they're trying to do on commentary, that is. But I think if there's a difference, that's why I would put it.
Nick says, who should be RCB's next coach and why should they hire Dan Weston as an analyst to help out in player recruitment? We'll obviously hire Dan. I mean, like a big friend of the podcast, Daniel Weston. We never call him Daniel. Maybe we should start calling him Daniel. I don't know. I mean, like the rumor is Andy Flower, isn't it? That it will be Andy Flower who comes in to coach there. He left Lucknow last week. It was a little bit of a surprise that we don't do a year-round IPL show because there isn't really that much news. But in terms of news in the IPL, Mike Hesson being fired, released, mutually parting ways, whatever it was, however you want to describe it. It was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
I thought. I think the level above where Hesson was working, at ownership level, they are a bit of a basket case. I don't think they think particularly deeply about long-term strategy. And I think he didn't win anything for 3 years. Yeah, he turned them from a team that were finishing at the bottom to a team that were regularly competing for the playoffs or making the playoffs. But, I think it's a results business is what the owner would almost certainly say. And he didn't literally win the IPL. So I suspect that was why he ended up going. Andy Flower,
Tom Moody,
winner.
It's going to be Tom Moody.
I'd be stunned. Last one then, Max. It's back. Thoughts on the ICC limiting overseas players in franchises to 4 for the playing 11? What do you reckon about that?
Is that an ICC directive?
I think for major nations, it might just be major nations. So this might exclude the cricket tournament in the desert. And it might also exclude Major League Cricket. I'm not.
Well, neither of those actually count as official T20 stats.
All right.
Anyway, because of where they're based. Right. So
yeah. So they might not be officially ICC sanctioned tournaments, but for the major nations, that's what they have said they will do to, I think, limit the number of people that see globetrotting franchise cricket as a career option and I suppose in theory protect the international game longer term.
I mean I can sort of see it from that point of view, but I'm not sure. I'm not so hot on it because you could just maintain. You can let a franchise tournament have 5 overseas slots in the side and maintain the number of overseas slots you have in the squad, and that's not going to change anything. Because people are still going to go. Maybe they're more likely to go because they might think they get a game, but also you're going to end up with them actually playing some cricket. They could, maybe that's a slight detriment to local sides, but when we're talking about the IPL and the impact sub and the great number of sides that they've got going on, I think an extra overseas player, or at least allowing the impact sub to be an overseas player. I don't know how that would fit into their rules of 4. It would probably be good for the game. I think it's a bit of a weird one because like I say, if the squad number's not changing, then they're still going to go.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable point. I think they basically, I suspect, want to protect against a situation, and this could happen. This genuinely could happen where the Saudi Arabian investment fund decide they'll pile into West Indies cricket under the condition that they will have 8 overseas players, and they make the CPL the best league in the world, and screw up the cash cow for everyone else. There is a scenario that might be a bit fringe, but there are scenarios like that could be on the cards. And if that happened, it could be a bit of a disaster for international teams. Let's say there's a league with 8 teams, and they decide that they're going to allow 8 players plus 4 overseas bench players. Now there's what's 12 times 8? A lot. That's what it is. That's a lot of players that are suddenly going to go over to
96.
this league. And, 96 players, maybe more. I think they want to maybe protect against a situation like that. I don't know. I mean, I think the rubber is going to meet the road at some point with franchise tournaments. Probably not quite there yet. But there's going to need to be a better resolution to how international cricket coexists with franchise cricket than limiting the number of players in an 11 to 4.
Yeah,
which is a rule. Which is a rule that any major nation would pretty much be able to break, I think, without any serious repercussions. So, there's what it is. Max, we've done our hour. That's another show in the books. We'll be back on Wednesday after the first day of the cricket at Old Trafford. Do join us. Do make sure you click like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and the Twitter pod, the Cricket Pod. At the Cricket Pod on Twitter. And you can sign up as a Patreon. It's in the show notes. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod to support the show directly. Thank you very much for listening. Do tell your friends. And we, as I said, will be back later. Bye-bye.